today. I see we have other folks calling from, where are you calling from? Chicago. We got Arizona on the line, San Diego, California, Colorado, awesome, New York, Long Island, New York. So if you're just joining, go ahead and drop in the chat. Let us know where you are in the world. And as I said before, I had the pleasure of interviewing Rachel, our guest speaker, before, and I know she's got a ton of knowledge to share in this next hour. So buckle up, get your notepads out, close all your, your tabs that you've got open, stop multitasking so that you can participate with us today. We would love to have you participate if you're calling live. So you can participate in a number of ways. You can turn on your cameras if you feel called to do so. No pressure though. I know that video fatigue is real, but we would just, love to extend that invitation if anyone would like to have some face-to-face time with us today if you're live with us. If you are rewatching this, hey, what's up? Thank you for rewatching this. We would love to also have you participate in the comment section if you're rewatching so that we can, make sure that if anyone has any follow-up questions or has, really taken some gems out of this, we can shout that out as well. So if you're here live with us, we'd also invite you to write in the chat box any questions, any reflections, any tips and tricks of your own as well. Again, we want to hear from you, especially since you're taking time out of your busy schedules to join us live. So if anyone at any point wants to hop off mute and voice a reflection or a question, just give me a visual cue by raising your emoji hand. That will let me know you'd like to be added to the queue to hop off mute. If you don't know how to raise your emoji hand, no worries. Just drop in the chat box, either publicly or privately, writing to me, letting me know you'd like to hop off mute. And as time allows, I'll give you all the rights to hop off mute. Now, if you do hop off mute, you will be featured in our live recording as this is being recorded. And this is a nice reminder for those who signed up for this chat, be looking out for a rewatch email. That rewatch email will include a link to this recorded video so that you can rewatch it and send it to your colleagues, your friends, your family, your community. And then it will also include any links to resources that our guest speaker might bring up throughout the hour. So in case you aren't able to grab them from the chat box live, or if you're rewatching this and signed up, you'll still have access to that in the rewatch email. Now, since we are talking about, we're going to be vulnerable in this next hour, as life and work equals, for me, vulnerability. So if anyone has any sensitive information and you prefer to be kept anonymous, feel free to write me in the chat box privately. You can find me under Mariella Marie. Write to me privately there, and I will raise your question or your reflection and keep you anonymous. The last thing I'll say is we'd love for you to follow Power to Fly on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. And before I pass the mic to our awesome guest speaker, I'll just take a couple seconds to introduce myself. If this is your first time joining a chat where I am moderating, hello and welcome. Would love to hear from you. If you're here live, please, drop anything that you think would add value to this conversation, and I will highlight that as time allows. Now, I love speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence at home, at work, and at play. So you might hear me reflect on some emotional intelligence stuff. If you are interested in that, please join me in that conversation today. Otherwise, I invite you all to support my project that I'm working on that is called the Positive Force Team. You can go to thepositiveforceteam.org, sign up for my newsletter, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speaker, Rachel, who's calling from New York City today. Rachel, for those who have not joined a session where you've been speaking before, please introduce yourself. Let us know why you do what you do and what you're excited to share today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I say this every time, but your presence and mindfulness is contagious. So it's just you being you is like you're already doing your movement. So my background, I started out in the world of financial services. I was at Goldman Sachs and then Bridgewater. But for the first few years of my career, I was really intentionally trying to figure out what did I want to do with my life? What did I want to do with my career? I spent about 6 years really intentionally trying everything I could to answer that question. Ironically, I was also being referred to friends and friends of friends for, helping them with their resume and job search. And eventually, I was receiving career coaching. I realized I had some unique frameworks. I chose to get my own coaching training and certification. And from there, it sort of has taken on a mind of its own, where the past 4.5 years, I've been building out digital tools that represent our unique frameworks. And all of these tools and processes and frameworks are helping professionals and individuals like you all here today to be really intentional and confident and informed with any career step, any career decision. Our forte is what I call career exploration to help you clarify your best fit direction. But, there's so many things that are relevant to that: upskilling, personal branding, job searching, really anything career related. But really helping you to just be thoughtful with all of those questions, challenges, goals, and decisions. I have been a coach through some other organizations. WeWork, the Flatiron School, Columbia University, Project Activate. I did a tech MBA at NYU Stern. I am an entrepreneurship professor at Binghamton University. That's the long story short on me. I'm happy to explain further any part of my story, but that's the short version.
I love that. And I'm sure we'll learn more about you and just all of the milestones you've hit along the way. It's so fascinating just to hear already, all of the doors that you've been able to open and how you bring that to the work that you do today. So I'm sure that you'll share more about yourself as we reflect on these awesome questions that folks have submitted previous to today's conversation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So Rachel, you can go ahead and share your screen as well, and just walk us through the beautiful presentation that you have set up. And I just want to let you all know, you all have submitted some great questions before this conversation, and Rachel probably will be answering a lot of those in this presentation. So towards the end of the presentation, though, if she hasn't answered the questions that you have submitted, we will still give some allotted time for that. But if you're here live with us, we want to hear any questions that come to mind in the moment as well. So we're going to be juggling between previously submitted questions, live questions. I see we got Hong Kong representing, we got Florida, Wisconsin, more people are dropping in the chat. So we're pretty global here today, Rachel. Please keep that in mind as you're speaking with us. And I know you'll do just a rocking job on just helping us bring our authentic selves into this space. So thank you. Take it away.
Yes. And I love that there's an international presence here. It's wonderful. Before I forget, there is a series to this. So this is the first of 3. There's 2 more events that we're going to have, and it's going to be the full cycle of how to make your career change. Today is going to be focused on the readiness, the mindset, and how to clarify your path. The second event is around actually sort of upskilling, pivoting, and making that path a reality. And the third is the personal branding and the job search component. So lots of other things coming your way. So pay attention to Power to Fly's events page and you can sign up. So that's that. And I will pay attention to the chat as well. So you already learned about me. And this is our agenda. We're going to talk about the mindset, figuring out if you want to change, getting comfortable with change, limiting mindsets, figuring out where you need improvement in your career, how to clarify your direction, and a self-reflection exercise, and of course, Q&A. So these are just some of what's coming, but please let me know what's on your mind. Okay, so how to figure out if you even want a career change. I find that so many people I talk to are just not sure, right? They might have this inkling, but it's like, how do I know? It's like you have this feeling and you just let it sit. You let it simmer. We don't know whether to act on it or what it even is. You want to recognize some of the signals that might help you to really figure out what this means. How long have you been considering this change? How engaged are you in your current path? Has there been a feeling of wanting more, but maybe you're not sure what the next steps are, and that might be stalling or hindering you? Are you aware of what would be next, whether it means how to pursue the process or what your next career step might be? Sometimes that clarity around what to do or what's next might just stall our action, right? You want to ask yourself, like, what do you want and what do you need out of a career? So is your potential being fulfilled? Is your challenge being fulfilled? Literally ask yourself, what do I need out of a career? What do I want out of a career? These are, food for thought. You can write on these things. Probably not exactly in this moment, but these are future reflection exercises that might help you to have a benchmark. Am I getting what I want? Am I getting what I need out of this current place that you're working? And how does your current role stack up against what it is you're looking for? And sometimes people aren't sure about, like, do I stay or do I go, in the sense of, like, is it even possible to find something better? And that's a real question too. And we could talk about that, is just getting perspective. And oftentimes a coach or somebody else to be a fresh pair of eyes and ears can help you get that perspective. You want to ask yourself, what's holding you back, right? Sometimes it's subconscious. Write about this, reflect on this, right? Try to bring it to the surface. What is the hesitation? Is it whether you're capable of that next step? Is it whether how long it would take? Is it whether it's even feasible to go pursue it? Is it the fact that you don't know what you want? Any number, we're going to talk about some limiting mindsets today, but there's so many valid, thoughts and feelings that might be getting in your way. You want to just try to at least bring those to the surface, make it explicit, and that way you can figure out how to alleviate that or how to work through that. And you want to ask yourself, what would you have to embrace in order to explore the potential of what you could become, right? You'd really want to be open-minded. You'd want to be creative, maybe a little vulnerable, maybe a little brave. These are challenging, difficult, uncomfortable feelings. It's a lot easier to not embrace those things. But what would it look like if you were to sort of push yourself to sort of feel a little mentally stronger, a little more resilient, a little more open, a little bit more, and I'm going to teach you ways of making it more comfortable to actually slowly start to understand what's next before you have to make any big change, which will make you feel much better. But what would you have to look and feel like to actually embrace the results that you want, right? So, are you getting in your own way? And is there some sort of, I had a coach tell me once, of course, I'm the CEO of my company, and sometimes I don't feel like a 10 out of 10. And this woman asked me, what if you did just say you're a 10 out of 10? Like, sometimes our feelings are simply just a choice of what if I was brave today? What if I was open-minded today, right? Like, what if you just literally stepped into that thing versus yeah, it's scary. How do we get there? What if we just decide to feel that way today? What would that mean? What would we have to do to get there? So there's some deep stuff going on, but you really want to get to know yourself because it is step one. The mindset is absolutely step one before anything else can happen. So how do you get comfortable with change? You want to picture it, right? You want to understand the reality so that it doesn't feel like this fictitious, far away, impossible thing. Make it a little bit real in the way that you can actually get to know what would it actually mean? And would it be as bad as I'm making it out to be? Or would it be as scary or big as I'm making it out to be? Would it mean that there would be a lifestyle change? What would a new role mean for you? You want to turn your uncertainties into actual questions and questions into answers. So try to make it practical. Try to actually tease out the components, of what change might really look like. Remember that learning to me is the key to almost everything, So if you explore, if you learn, if you reflect on what the next path is for you, that's going to help you to feel confident that you understand what's coming before you pursue it, before you apply, before you interview. You're just going to understand what it is you're looking for, how it works. You're going to understand, you're going to get your questions answered. You're going to feel informed before you make any change, right? Learn before you act as a way of comforting yourself in the fact that you can just be in the mode of exploration, getting your questions answered. And remember, you might uncover, oh, I thought that path was for me. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. You can reassess given what you're learning. And as you're learning, you're going to reflect on what you're hearing and what it means for you. So you're not going to pursue a change until you actually feel that it's the right thing for you. Build your support system, right? So sometimes subconsciously or consciously, we might feel pressure from the people around us. I remember for the longest time, I felt like my dad just needed me to have this 9-to-5 job. And he never said that, but I just had this feeling and I physically could not do it anymore. I literally left. I was crying and I started my own business. That was scary, but I was feeling this undue pressure unspokenly, right? It wasn't an explicit thing. Sometimes a partner, it could be a family member, it could be anyone. Our family, our influences has so much to do with how we, see the world, how we see our choices, how we see what we're supposed to do. I mean, really get to know what's going on for you. And can you have a conversation with yourself or with someone else to help you feel more comfortable embracing some next steps? So we're going to dive into typical limiting mindsets, and I'm going to try to debunk all of these for you. So first is stress. And this is real. A lot of us have stress around our career, and that might be because you want more for yourself. It might be coming from a good place, and yet you might feel stressed about, what to do, maybe anxious. Should I leave? Should I pursue something? This stress is very valid. Try to implement some structure, instead of operating. So like sometimes when we feel stressed, we'll just go to the job boards and we'll start applying out of that moment. Try to pause and say, what's my actual goal? Is my goal how to clarify my direction? In which case, how would I get from A to Z? What would be the steps? How could I break it down, right? Versus like taking the immediate gut reaction of like just applying, job hopping. Sometimes is out of that stressful moment, sometimes our action, we want to take a step back and apply a process to it to really break down how can I get there in a way that makes the most sense versus my immediate, how do I operate out of stress? Oftentimes we're looking for security when we're choosing a career path. And it is an important factor to understand the salary of a path. But I always say the path you're interested in is the most secure path. If you are interested, if you are engaged at work, there are statistics around how you are more innovative, more productive, more successful. You actually make more money faster when you are an engaged employee. So yes, you want to understand the salary path, but you don't want to make that your only decision, because if you don't figure out what aligns with what you're like, you might be ignoring an important component of, are you going to get to the job and then either hate it or not be great at it or whatever it might be? That's not a secure job if you're ready to quit anyway. So we have to consider all these components. Sometimes, often we might say, oh, I can't do this. It would be too difficult. I'm not capable. Remember to learn about that path before you decide whether you can or can't. Only make a decision about whether you want to go forward or can go forward once you are fully informed about the realities and the nuances of what that path entails. We often are sort of judging ourselves, and unfortunately others may judge us by our past, but your story is so much more compelling than your past. If you show up to an interview and understand why you're there and why you're a strong fit, and you understand the role so deeply and why you were the best candidate in the room, that person rarely exists in an interview process. So you will be the best person there. Yes, you can understand how your past might be applicable or transferable, but you never want to just say, oh, I have to go continue doing this because it's what I've done. There's always ways of making sense of your past journey, why you went from that to that, why you're looking to make a change. We're in this world where no one expects you to do the same exact role forever. There's so much organic nature to it, and your varied skill set and background is going to help you. So don't feel held back by what you've done. We often think like, oh, I've got to figure out like what I want to be, in the future. I like to encourage 70 to 80% of your thinking on the short term, meaning what would be the next best fit role and industry for you. And yes, you want to understand where that could lead in the future, but 20, 30, however many years down the line, you're going to change, the world's going to change. If you pick some goals so far away, it's just, what are the odds that's the same thing you're going to actually want? So yes, you want to be informed, but it's a balance of informed and yet that beautiful unpredictability of like, once you get into a great role, you want to see where it's going to go. You're going to deepen your exposure to the right space. You may learn about things you didn't even know existed before. Oftentimes people say, I'm open to anything. I'm open to any role. I'm open to any industry. To me, that's like the biggest sort of pet peeve that I have. And the reason is because oftentimes I feel that people say that they're open because they're not sure what they want or what the best fit is for them. I'd rather you be picky. And I think people think that being too narrow closes off their options. You can double down and find 2 times more of the opportunities in just that one type of role. Just because you're looking into 4 different types of roles doesn't mean you have more necessarily. What it means is you're probably going to be overwhelmed, and your story is probably not going to be super straightforward because you're telling 4 different stories. So figure out the right story and then figure out where to find more of the right thing. Oftentimes we pick a path that we're aware of. And just in the US alone, there's over 160,000 unique roles. That doesn't mean you have to know every single role, but it does mean it's okay for you to say, I'm not sure what I want. I'm looking into A, B, C, and D. Be honest with yourself and be honest with others so that you can, let them help you. If you're debating 3 options, tell them, right? But don't assume you know everything just yet. Exploration and learning about what's out there. You can learn so much, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to do exploration in just 2 to 3 months, where you can learn what you need to learn to figure out the right things for you. So we often think interviewing is this like sort of check the box. I've got to go in, I've got to do this thing well. I want you to think about it as a conversation, right? Interviews and networking are a mirror into the job you may hold. So who do you want to talk to about what, why, right? Your conversation is going to be about solving certain problems in some sort of manner. So who do you want to talk to about what, right? Don't just see it as like, I've got to do this thing well, which is often, yes, you want to do well. But when we go into that mode, sometimes we just forget like, oh, this is also about where I actually want to be, who I actually want to have this conversation with, right? It's a 2-way street. And sometimes we think of it like, oh, we have to prove ourselves to them. What about where do you even want to have that conversation? We often think about applying. It's like the only thing that we do. Explore, learn, research, network, learn from professionals, learn about the roles, learn about the industries. Make sure you know what you want. It's not just about applying. And by the way, even for job search, networking statistically is the best way to land a job anyway. So let's bring it back, and applying is not that 100% thing we should be wasting our time doing. We often look at others around us in terms of, what are they doing? I want you to always come back to yourself, okay? You are the person living and breathing this career. You are the one waking up every day who has to feel the way you feel at work. You are the one who's going to either reach your potential or hate your job or whatever it may be. Yes, you have a family and but they want you to feel great too. They want you to find your best fit. And so it's natural that sometimes like on tools like LinkedIn, we start looking at other people. Know that that's natural, but just try to bring it back to yourself and try to have influences that are just serving you in a positive, influential, motivating sort of way versus like, oh, you're comparing. Okay. We often operate out of a place of fear. I always say replace fear with learning. If you have a fear, if you have an anxiety, if you have an uncertainty, turn those into questions and turn those questions into answers. Try to understand where the hesitation is and try to see if you can either learn something to answer your question and get informed or reflect to figure out how you feel. But try to, turn that into something practical and productive to make sense of your thoughts and your feelings, because they're probably telling you something important, and you just need to take that forward. Okay.
Yes, Rachel, wait. I want to get to know our audience a little more, and I want you to have a sip of water because you are just spilling all the knowledge right now. Can you go back to that previous slide? And I want to just ask everyone who's listening, because people are singing your praises now in the chat, saying that this is super helpful. And we do have some questions. I'll raise these questions after the presentation, everyone. So just hold tight. But I do want to just, understand our audience that's live right now. So I would like for you to, there are 2 parts to this that I want you to do in the chat. So if you're joining us live, you are going to either write a 1, a 2, or a 3 in the chat. You're going to write a 1 if you're thinking of changing your career. You're going to write a 2 if you are currently changing, like in the midst of the career pivot, right? Or you're going to write a 3 if you have already pivoted, but you're still here. I know that the questions still continue even when you do pivot. So a 1 if you are thinking of it, a 2 if you are currently doing it, a 3 if you already have. All right, so we've got lots of 2s, so lots of folks who are currently, a few 1s. All right, no 3s. So we got, it looks pretty even. We got a couple 3s. Nice. We got 2 3s. So it looks like we've got an overwhelming folks who are currently pivoting, and then next in line would be the folks who are thinking of it. And we do have a couple who have already pivoted. Now, my next question, Rachel, I would love to just have folks who pull from these words here that are on the screen. Now that you have shared where you are in your career journey, can you write one or two of these words that jump out that you're maybe, right now you're experiencing? So if it's, stress, or if it's, being aware or being picky, short term, just drop some of the words that call your attention now, so that I can just let Rachel know and she can understand a little bit more about our live caller. So as folks are doing that, thank you, Rachel. You were so amazing with your presentations. I mean, you have so much knowledge, and I just wanted you to be able to understand the live callers as well today. So we got story, open, clarity, I can't, and fear, stress, I don't know. Structure, learn, beautiful, learn, I'll learn. Lots of learning coming up in the chat. Great. Create, awesome. Thank you all. Explore, great. Take it away, Rachel. This is great.
Yeah, and by the way, with fear, maybe it's learning about yourself and what you want and what you need, or maybe it's learning about the roles and the careers that are out there, or maybe it's both. Learning and reflection is key to finding clarity and confidence in your career decisions. So I love this. Okay, so now we want to say which area of your career needs improvement, okay? So there's 3 sections that I like to think about. The first is what I call function. Function is the day-to-day of your work. It's the skills, the activities, the projects, the things, that you're literally doing throughout your day, the action, verbs, and phrases, the activities. The second piece is the content. And this is the nature of the work. It's the topics or the problems that you're actually working on. So to separate and explain this further, if your function of your day-to-day is that you're doing research, or you're training someone, or you're coding something, or you're building something, or you are selling something, the content is, what are you actually training on? What are you researching about? What are you selling, right? That's how you separate the two. The third piece is the environment. So what would it look and feel like physically? The culture, the people, the style, the vibe, the pace, the remote, all the bells and whistles of the physical environment that you're a part of at work. Now, these are the words you typically hear: role, industry, culture. This is how it becomes translated. So if I were you guys, and you could even write this in the chat if you wanted to, which of these 3 sections do you think is most in need of improvement, whether that means clarifying it, or you already know you need to improve the fit of your role, of your industry, or of the culture that you're a part of. And by the way, you might choose 2 of these, you might choose all 3. So if you're currently working, which of these 3 do you think needs the most improvement in your next step? And if you're not working, which of these 3 are you most focused on getting right, in your next step? So feel free to share in the chat which of these 3 you're really focusing on improving. And I'm happy to answer questions if this isn't clear, but this is a framework to make sure you can think about whenever you're thinking about your next step. These are sort of the 3-part thing that you can think about, because each are important to try to clarify. And that way, when you pursue, what am I, going after? Each of the 3 are important. Oftentimes we munge together the role in the industry, but they're very, very separate. You can be in HR, you can be an engineer, you could be all these different things in a variety of industries, right? You could be different roles, different industry, and various environments as well. So clarifying what you want here is the key, so that when you start applying, you start interviewing, easily know how do those things stack up against what I know I want as it relates to each of these 3. Okay.
I love it. Rachel, can I highlight some things happening in the chat?
Yes.
All right. So we got folks writing role in industry, culture in industry, role in industry, culture and role in industry, role in industry, role in industry. All right. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, makes perfect sense to me. It's a lot of everything, but each of these 3 are so important. So it makes sense that I'm seeing a lot of that. And there's different ways of assessing and getting to know it. By the way, career exploration can very much help you pinpoint role in industry. Culture is something you want to just know what you need out of the people you work with, the values, the style, the pace, the remote, right? And that's something you assess more during the interview process. But career exploration is going to help you to practically narrow in on the right role and the right industry. So what is career exploration? It is a process that is distinct from and a precursor to the job search. It is a series of steps of learning and reflection so that you can compare, contrast, clarify which path you are most confident in pursuing or which path is the best fit for you. And by the way, exploration can and should be done before any job search, right? It's not just a one-time thing. Anytime you're ready for the next step, you just want to say, what's best for me? What's next for me? Right? Why does it have to come before job searching? Well, first of all, it's going to make your job search that much more efficient. It's going to make it that much more effective. And it's going to increase the odds that you actually are fulfilled in your next role. The last thing we want is to risk and guess, am I going to like it? How do we find out about the job before we get in it? This is how we do it, right? Cool. I hope this makes sense. And I'm going to keep going, and then I'm happy to answer lots of questions. Okay, so how do I do career exploration? Good, thank you. Okay, the first step is motivation accountability, meaning you have to ask yourself, am I ready? Am I at a moment where I literally need to do exploration? Committing to the fact that you're going to be in that mode, in that process, is step number one. All right, then you want to reflect on your interests. That's an exercise we can do today, or we can always follow up. I'm happy to chat with you guys after the fact. We have a career assessment that we offer, but the bottom line is you want to reflect on each of these three things. You want to reflect deeply on the function that's most aligned with you, the content that's most aligned with you, the environment that's most aligned with you. Then you want to say, okay, which roles are relevant to those functions and which industries are relevant to the content. You're going to have options. Most assessments spit out one answer and then you're like, what? So you want to come up with options for roles, options for industries. Then you want to learn a little bit of research. You can't learn everything online, but you can learn some stuff online. And then you're going to network. You are going to meet the people who work in those roles and in those industries. And you are going to learn deeply, accurately. You are going to paint the picture so clear that you would know what it would look and feel like if you were to walk into that job today. And then maybe some experiential learning. I like to leave that towards the end. Maybe shadowing, volunteering, some pro bono work, a side project, a hands-on project, a course, a certification, a small way of testing it out in a direct way. But reflection and iteration is key. You might hear about roles that sound good or industries that don't sound good. Iterate. Every single week, you're going to learn, synthesize, reflect, and iterate. About 2 to 3 months of doing this, 2 to 3 hours a week, you are going to get to the point of saying, this role, this industry, this environment feels like the best fit, given what you understand about those options and how it relates to you. That's how you clarify with confidence. Then you go to the job search, and then, of course, you love your job. I'm going to skip this quickly. So yeah, just so you guys know who we are, and then we're going to move to some Q&A stuff. This is what we do. This is what I do. This is what Woken does. We help guide you through all of these steps. And then, of course, after exploration, personal branding, job search, upskilling decisions, all of that, teaching you how to do it, what to do, when to do, why to do it, how to do it, where to do it, all that jazz is what we do. We are here to remind you can and should find a job you love, and you can get in touch. And I'm, of course, going to hang out, but I want to make sure I share this with you. And Mariella, if you want, we might want to take a quick poll. I can sort of kick it off and let me know if you want to help me, but I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. I have about a 5 to 7 minute guided reflection exercise that will help you to start to reflect on your functional affinities, the content and topic areas that you're most interested in, and the environment you thrive in. So if you would like to participate in this self-guided, prompted reflection exercise today, I would say throw us in the chat to say reflect. And then if you'd prefer to just start with some Q&A and then maybe revisit the reflection at the end, tell us Q&A in the chat, and let us know what you're most excited to do next in our session here today. But just know that the reflection is something we can always come back to as well if you would like. I knew it.
Yeah, we got a resounding reflect. We want to reflect, so go for it. Take us there.
We had a feeling about this, right? So we knew this was coming. People love, and by the way, it makes perfect sense. We are human beings naturally curious about ourselves and others. So I love that you guys are ready for the reflection. That's amazing, amazing, amazing. So get a pen and a piece of paper. I like to handwrite, but you can type if you want to in a digital memo pad. But tell us when you're ready. You could either write ready or throw us a thumbs up emoji. And I'm going to prompt you through some literal guided reflection. So let me know when you're ready. I'll wait for a quick second here and allow you guys to get that pen and paper. Okay, we're ready. Beautiful.
We're ready.
Okay, so section number 1 is the function. It's the affinities. It's the tendencies. So I'm going to talk and you guys just write some keywords as they come to your head. Does not need to be perfect sentences. Just literally whatever words are coming to your mind, okay? So I want you to start to think of a few experiences you had. It could be a project within work. It could be outside of work. It could be however far back in your life. But you want to call out 1 or 2 or 3 experiences that stand out to you as the most interesting, the things you were most engaged in. Maybe these are projects you chose to do, right? I say project loosely. It could even be hobbies, things you most enjoy. You're in flow, you're engaged, you're freaking jamming, you're loving it. You know, something you're great at, something you're natural at. So think of some memories, 1 or 2 or 3 of them, however many come to your mind. You don't have to write the full story, but just remind yourself which of those experiences and think broadly, right? It could be in work, it could be a past role, it could be a hobby, a club, volunteering. It could be something you do in your free time. It could be as far back as college, high school, you know, broadly. The top of your list, the things you've most loved, most enjoyed. Now, I want you to pick the top one, and I want you to start to flesh out the verbs, the actions, the skills. What were you literally doing in that experience? Tease out like the actual components of what went into that, the action verbs and phrases and the skills of how did you actually accomplish that thing? What were the parts of what you were doing? The key words that describe the activities that went on as you were doing that thing. I'll give you a few seconds on that. So now that you've got that list started, I want you to continue the list. All of a sudden, you've started a list of verbs and action phrases and skills and, you know, things like, you know, things you're good at, things you're natural at, things you love doing, tendencies, affinities. Continue that list. Continue that list. Okay? I'm going to grab water while you guys reflect.
I love this. Thank you so much, Rachel. And I appreciate the pause as well so that we can reflect mindfully and grab that word that comes to mind. I would also encourage you all, I'm doing this activity too, because I think it's beneficial for everyone, as we are growing all the time, right? So to not be too picky with our words, could take the first one that comes to mind, and maybe if we have a little more time, pick a second one, right? Because it's like we're looking for the perfect word to describe the perfect thing that we like to do in that, you know. But I think, you know, if we're being mindful of listening to our intuition, going with that, you know, in this scenario, it is good to go with our gut feeling to write down, you know, what attracted, was it because I was intellectually stimulated, you know, was it because I could express, did I feel safe? You know, there's so many words or expressions that we can grab there. So I don't want people to think, be too hard on themselves. This is not your English class.
Yeah, 100%. Like, don't overthink it at all. We will analyze it all later, but the thing that comes to you is the right thing right now. So that's exactly right. So I'm going to move forward. And so if someone were to ask you to do a project today, what would it be? And picture this is like a fictitious company. We don't even know, like they could do anything, or maybe they do everything. You're hired, you're being paid. What should they ask you to do? What would you want them to ask you? You could be paid to do this thing. And by the way, it could be like a functional skill where you actually know the project, or you could say like, I'd love to look into or improve or work on or build out or fix a certain process where you may not know the outcome or the solution, but maybe you know the intention. So somebody asks you to do a project today, any project, what should they ask you to do? What would you like them to ask you to work on? And this is not where you work today. This is a fictitious company. This company does everything.
This is fun because I get to put someone that I really want to meet. I put Bjork because I would love for Bjork to hire me to do some like social impact work. So I'm like, Bjork, are you listening? Are you there?
I love that. I love that. And it just goes to show, even when you are engaged in your job, there's always more. Like you're pushing your mind even further to say, what else do I want? What else do I need? What else makes sense? What else is aligned for me? We're opening our minds. So self-reflection, I mean, we should really be doing it daily, just to push the bounds. So the next one is, think of times you have helped others, or what others come to you for help with. What do you enjoy helping others with? I'll let you guys sit on that one for a little bit. But what do you like helping people with? What do people come to you for help with? What do you enjoy helping others with? For a long time, I volunteered as a career coach. Okay, this was before I got trained and certified. Light bulb. You know what I'm saying? You know, I used to edit resumes. I used to informally on the phone just give people answer questions. Okay. You know, in college, I literally decided to create this survey because students weren't getting the right adequate guidance around the classes to take that aligned with their careers. Okay, that would be nice if I had understood that at the time. So understanding our choices. Hopefully we've been able to have some projects that we really enjoy. But what would you choose to work on if somebody were to pay, right? So we can think about it in the future, or we can understand our past experiences. So I'm going to move to section number 2, which I call content. But it's really about the topics and the problems that are important and interesting to you. So I want you guys to start to reflect on section number 2, which is, what are some things you like to read about, or maybe even listen to if it's a podcast or news, podcasts, articles, social media. I would be really open-minded. What are the things you watch, listen to, pay attention to, click on, digest, choose to read about? Could be a book, could be an article, could be any format of information that you choose to literally digest. And I want you to be open-minded with yourself, because if it's TikTok and you're watching certain videos, sometimes we think, oh, that's just a hobby, but you'd be surprised as to what it is that you watch. That's probably an industry where there's a real company that has a product or service that actually aligns. So be open-minded. Topics you digest, information you digest, information you seek out, information you like to read about, think about, learn about, talk about. So I'm going to let you ponder. I'm giving you a lot of prompts here, a lot of food for thought. Yes, true crime. That's okay. I mean, that's real. That's real. Think about the podcasts that exist. Think about the writers who create those things, right? There are real jobs that go into creating those things. I'm not necessarily saying this is going to be your job, but I do want you to be open-minded about it. There are companies that produce podcasts. There are companies that write these stories. There are cooking, boom, love it, okay? And by the way, after you do the reflection, you can decide, okay, that's a hobby, but that's something I'd like to explore professionally, okay? So for now, be open-minded with yourself. And it's funny, Celeste, you guys are funny. I like this. But no, it's okay to be open-minded. It's okay to just document what's coming to your mind. Now, I'm going to get a little more serious. What are the problems in the world you feel need solving? This world, unfortunately, sometimes it feels like our problems just are growing instead of reducing, unfortunately. But what are the problems where you're like irked and you're like, oh my God, how does this thing still exist? How do we not have this? Why is this so broken? Why do people not have this? Why? I could talk about career exploration all day long. What are the things that you're like, this has an impact on people? I care about this. This is a problem. Man, I'm feeling it. I make myself like.
Yeah, as you said, unfortunately, there's a big list of things to pick from there. But fortunately, we are here looking for how to be involved, which is actually a step in the right direction. So I appreciate everyone for taking the time to contemplate. And Rachel, I appreciate that question that you're posing.
Yeah. And we want to prioritize which problems are most important to you. And by the way, again, this is why I don't want you to judge yourself, because like something like cooking, like, okay, maybe objectively you're like, okay, there's like things that might like seem more or less important, but like it's important. It's health, it's physical health, it's mental health. Food is a real thing. For different types of groups of people relate to food differently, and it has impact on their lives. So every single topic that you're thinking of has an impact in some way, shape, or form. Which one is most important or interesting to you? Start to prioritize the list. I'll ask one more question. Products or services that you find most interesting. Could be a digital thing, could be a physical thing, could be a store, could be any sort of service, could be something you've heard about, something you've used personally, any area of innovation, something new, or it could be something that's been age old, from the tale of time. Some product or service, maybe it's like the thing you talk about and your friends are like, I don't care, stop telling me this every day. And you're like, you got to use this thing. You got to check out this thing. I do it. And people are like, why? Like they don't care, but you care. Products or services. Yes, I love that, Elizabeth. Awesome. Products or services you find interesting, innovative, impactful, intriguing. You're telling people to try this thing.
Like a good reflection is, sometimes you might be speaking so passionately about something and then you're like, they're not paying me to say this. They could be paying me to say this, That's one reflection there.
That's exactly right. Or paying me to think about it, paying me to research it, paying me to focus on that thing, paying me to look into that problem, paying me to sit there all day thinking about this thing that I care about. Amazing, right? We want to say, where can we go get paid to do the things that are interesting? And by the way, there's a realistic element. We are going to learn about the jobs and the industries, but this is the beginning so that we can come up with some ideas. Okay, let's go to section 3.
Yes, and Rachel, I want to pause. We have about 10 minutes left. So just to let everyone know, everyone's doing such a great job with this impromptu workshop, but I do want to make sure that everyone knows we have 10 minutes left.
Cool. I'm going to go through this in 2 minutes so I can answer questions. So environment, this is important. Do you want to be in a small team, medium-sized team, large organization? And it could be a range, but what range size group feels right to you? Do you want to be fast-paced, medium-paced, slow-paced? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be remote or in person or hybrid? The buzzwords of today. What traits should the people have that you work with? Values, the style, the personality. What should they be like? What the environment, the culture should be like? Get specific, right? Close your eyes and picture it physically. Sometimes knowing what you see helps you to understand the vibe of what you're looking for next. what you're craving. Maybe you're just like want a big corporate setting. Maybe you want a really small, scrappy startup team. What do you see? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Beautiful. I'll leave you guys with that food for thought. Environment's important, but you can always come back to this recording. As I mentioned, I have an assessment, 80 plus questions. It takes you through all of this in a much bigger way. But yeah, for the last few minutes, I would love to answer questions. And I know that we have pre-submitted and we have questions from today. So let me know where to start, Mariella.
Let's start with folks who are raising their hand, because I think you covered a lot of the pre-submitted questions. So Azim, you were up first. Thank you for waiting patiently. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I've been working for a company for almost, I've been working for various companies as a consultant for almost 10 to 15 years. And I've aced every interview I've been to, worked for all these Fortune 500 companies. And I always felt like, okay, the next thing I need to do is work for a better company, move up the ladder. But, I've realized after a period of time that all of these things doesn't matter, because I'm at a cap which my job is always going to pay regardless of which company I work with, and that is the threshold. So maybe I may be up 10%, 15%, but that's about it. Now I'm realizing over a period of time that I need to get out of that mode and get into an uncapped rate where, rather than impressing my interviewer and moving on to the next gig, I need to find a role or do something where my time is valued at an unlimited potential and it's not just capped. So how would I go about it? It's not that finding the right things, but it's not working out for me.
Uncapped salary potential, is that what you're saying? Meaning, like, how do you figure out what's your next step that would be a growth opportunity beyond, in a bigger way than what you're already doing, is what I'm hearing. Is that right? Or
so I would give an example, but so one of my friends, and it's not in the same direction, but I got inspired by that. So a couple of my friends, they were working in a similar facet, and one of them, he wrote a book because he felt that is what he wanted to do, and that is something he's getting an uncapped income. Another one became a mortgage officer when he was in a very high-paying job, but he realized it was not giving him the right balance, and he was being locked into an 8 or 9 hour shift, but not getting anywhere. So people have done some kind of different work roles, which are giving them, this kind of uncapped income.
Understood. Well, so if you're thinking about literally just the income and the salary perspective, you can use the exploration that I just mentioned to learn about what are the roles, whether it's like a side thing or a full-time thing. And in terms of understanding salary, there is research and networking involved to understand what those roles are and how it relates to how the salary works for those roles. So I understand what you're saying. But honestly, I think the same career exploration process pretty much applies, in the sense that, like, you've got to figure out like what you like doing, both in terms of the style of the work and the industries. Try to relate that into a few different options. And then you want to understand what those actual options might look and feel like if you were to go do it, assess whether you actually might enjoy it. And salary is one component of the exploration process that you want to understand. You want to understand, what does this role feel like day to day? What is the salary? How would I break in? That is what exploration is for, is to literally answer all of those questions so that you're informed. And when you understand those factors as it relates to, say you have 3, 4, 5, or 10 roles that you're considering, that's when you understand the differences and you understand the factors for each of the roles. That's when you can compare, contrast, and say, okay, this one feels like the right fit given what it is you're looking for. So for you, you're looking for this like sort of untapped growth from an income perspective. That's one thing. All of you sitting here today may be looking for any number of things. And so exploration is the way of saying, what is my criteria? How do I understand what those roles entail? And how do I understand where the match is? Right? So I hope that makes sense. Mariella, do we have another question?
Yes, actually, we So we've got a couple folks with their hands raised, and just for the sake of time, I don't want anyone's question to be, cut short, as we will be ending in about 4 minutes. So I'm going to hit up one last pre-submitted question I think is going to be important for everyone. And if we didn't get a chance to raise your question live, please, please, please connect with Rachel. Rachel has dropped her website here in the chat, iamwoken.com. Also, before we leave, we'll make sure that Rachel puts, her preferred ways to connect. Maybe that's on LinkedIn or things like that. But Rachel, let's get to this question here. How do you prepare yourself emotionally for the transition to a new career? The previous time I switched jobs, I got emotionally drained. And so just because I love speaking about emotional intelligence, how can people, as they are navigating this change and all of the back work that you're, suggesting to do, which might bring up a lot of stuff, how can we protect ourselves emotionally and also, be available to the new stuff that is at hand?
Yeah. Self-care and mental health and resilience and taking care of yourself in any number of ways is important for all phases of careers, whether you're just working, whether you're going through exploration, whether you're upskilling to make that pivot, whether you're job searching. That mental health is even more important, I would say, during job search. But, to this person's point, when you're making a pivot happen, any number of things could feel draining. So I think you need, of course, put in proactive measures for taking care of yourself, your mental sanity, your physical health, but also reactive. So know that when you feel that ounce of stress or that feeling of anxiety, what can you do in the moment to really sort of bring yourself back and recenter? Maybe it's writing some stuff down. Maybe it's emailing a mentor or a peer or a coach to get some guidance. Maybe it's, looking for some guidance online or whatever it might be, right? So trying to acknowledge the thought, the feeling, document it, and trying to get support where you can. So reactive, proactive. And honestly, I really do just think self-awareness of understanding what is draining to you. Is it the fact that you're doing too many hours a day and you're burning out? Is it the fact that you're pursuing this pivot for months or years and you're not getting anywhere? You want to understand what the feeling is, what the challenge is, and honestly, where you can get support. I think the key is don't go at it alone. A coach, a mentor, a peer, whatever it might be, an accountability group. Try to get another pair of eyes and ears on what it is you're doing. Because if the burnout is coming from you're doing the same things, you're not getting anywhere, remember, I think we forget that in the world of careers, there is help out there. And I know career coaching is often really expensive. I personally aim to not make it so. But even if you can't pay for help, mentor, peers, something to help, get you out of your own way. Sometimes I find that the mental health challenges just gets into place when we don't get out of our sort of own heads. And so whether that means finding support to know how to meditate, to know how to do mental health, or to know how to approach your career. But I think getting support to know how to actually go about these things and take care of yourself or pursue the career steps in the right, best way, this support is here for you. So seek it out. That's my quickest answer. I mean, I'm sure there's so much more we could talk about. Yeah.
But it's so important, the support element. So thank you for highlighting that. And of course, you could dive in deeper. But for the sake of time, I just want to thank everyone for joining and participating. So much participation in this chat. And since you all loved Rachel and what she had to share today, be sure that you register for her upcoming chats, How to Gain Career Clarity for a Smooth Career Pivot. That's happening on May 26th. And then Personal Branding and Job Search Strategies to Land Your Next Role. That's June 16th. We've dropped those in the chat, but feel free to look at Power to Fly's website and subscribe so that you can make those upcoming virtual events. Thank you so much, Rachel. This has been a blast. Everyone has clearly, come out with some nuggets here, and hopefully, we will leave a little more inspired to be our authentic selves and to be able to navigate this kind of, these murky waters with confidence and shine our own light, although it might seem unfamiliar and uncomfortable. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, Rachel. It's always a pleasure.